Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Cartalicchio. I want to welcome you to another segment of Destination Health Podcast, Finding Function in a Dysfunctional World. We're just going to get right into it today. I am very excited. We have Dr. Jenn Simmons on, and she is a former breast cancer surgeon. She was the top breast cancer surgeon in Philly for 17 years, fellowship trained. Let me tell you something. She is great. She's a confidant of mine. She's one of my best friends. She left when she was on the top of her game because of personal reasons, and we all get into functional medicine for personal reasons. She has a program, My Answer to Breast Cancer, and we're going to get in. I feel like disrupting today. I feel like getting everybody mad at us today. I feel like to really to annoy and to get people to think a little bit more.
Well, then you invited the right rebel rouser.
Yeah, you know what? And like I said, Dr. Jenn's a really good friend of mine. We met a little over a year ago. We belong to a group together, and she's just an awesome person. So here you are, number one. You're the top prominent breast cancer surgeon in the Philly area. That concludes South Jersey. Are you guys Eagles and Flyers fans?
We are.
Like that.
We are.
I am a Giants fan.
My husband is equally as much of a Giants fan as he is an Eagles fan, in all fairness, because he worked in New York for over 20 years. So he is very much a Giants fan.
Really? All right.
But the Eagles were easier to root for last year. We'll see what this year has in store for us.
We'll see what I've been a Giants fan
easier to root for
61 years of my life. I'm going to have to give him a call and say, "Yo, what's up, man? Let's go watch the game when they're playing."
I'm sure he would love to catch a game with you.
There you go. So tell us your story. Why did you leave? I mean, you were number one. I mean, you were the top dog. What happened? Why did you leave?
Yeah. So I'll tell you that, like most people, I have a pain to purpose mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I come into the breast cancer world very honestly.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, my first cousin was a woman named Linda Creed. Linda was a singer-songwriter in the 1970s, 1980s. She wrote all the music for the Spinners and the Stylistics. She wrote 54 hits in all, but her most famous song was The Greatest Love of All.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You love that song. You were
I love that song.
When we were at the conference.
Loves that song.
Yeah, we were at the conference last year. You were just belting it out, by the way.
Well,
I'm looking at you and I'm saying, wow.
When your first cousin writes that song, and it's probably one of the most famous songs of all time, right? So when she wrote that in 1977 as the title track to the movie The Greatest, starring Muhammad Ali.
Mm-hmm.
But it really received acclaim in March of 1986 when Whitney Houston released that song to the world, right?
That's right.
And at that time, it's going to spend 14 weeks at the top of the charts.
Mm-hmm.
But Linda will never know, because she dies of metastatic breast cancer just 1 month after Whitney released that song. I was 16 years old at the time, and my hero died.
Oh my God. I am so sorry.
So her life, and ultimately her death, gives birth to my life's purpose, because I never want another woman, another family, another community to have to suffer in the way that ours suffered. And so I do the only thing I know how to do. I become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I become a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
I become the first fellowship trained breast surgeon in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
I am doing novel things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm practicing oncoplastic surgery, which is very popular in Europe, but virtually unheard of here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing the cancer part, but doing the reconstruction, and really thinking that I am making a contribution and really providing a service.
Right.
And in some way, and in that way, I was, in that I didn't know any better. And I didn't know that I was just delaying the inevitable for people. Mm-hmm. But in any event, I'm doing that, and I'm running the cancer program for my hospital. We have an NIH accredited cancer program. I'm a wife and a mother and an athlete and a philanthropist, and I have all these balls in the air. Mm-hmm. And I go from being as high functioning as you can be to I can't walk across the room. Like, I have no breath in me. So I go to the emergency room and I have this exhaustive 3-day workup, and I'm sitting in the office of my friend and colleague and physician. And he tells me that I need surgery and chemoradiation, and I'm going to have to take lifelong medication. And if I don't do it, I'm going to die. And I hear him. Of course, I hear him. And I know that this is standard of care. And I know that these are things that I recommend all day, every day without hesitation or reservation. And yet when the words are coming at me, I'm not there. I am somewhere floating all above saying like, this can't be my life. And so call it God, call it universe, call it whatever you want to call it. I said no. And I start this journey to heal myself. I somehow instinctively knew that there was something else. And I couldn't reconcile how God would give me an organ only to have to take it away and spend the rest of my life replacing it.
Right.
And so I go home. I do what I tell everyone never to do. I go to Dr. Google and I figure that I'm a pretty educated consumer. I didn't know what I didn't know.
That's right.
And I type in how to heal naturally. And at that time, this is like 2016. So at that time, Google was actually fairly reliable in that you could find the information you were looking for.
Right.
You cannot find it now. Like the truth seekers have to work really, really hard now to seek the truth, because what you're reading is being very carefully crafted for you. Like the narrative is highly, highly, highly controlled. And you are on a need to know basis. And if you are the average consumer, as far as the medicine, government, the pharmaceutical industry, big pharma, big ag, like you don't need to know.
Yeah.
Right? Like they are in charge of what you perceive as the truth, and it is not the truth. But at that time, I see that diet is something that I am being drawn to. This is what is being called out to me. And so as a physician, I had 15 hours worth of training around nutrition and like useless training. Like they taught us about rickets and scurvy and things that we never see in the developed world.
Right.
But that's what I learned in my 15 hours, my first year of medical school. And just to give you some perspective, I mean, I went through 4 years of medical school and 5 years of residency and a year of fellowship training. And never again did we talk about nutrition. Never again. In the first 15 hours of my first year of medical school, and that was it.
In Cairo school, I think we had 18 or 20 hours.
So now I'm surprised about that, because I thought that your requirements in chiropractic school were somewhere between 200 and 300 hours.
Not for nutrition, and plus I've been practicing almost 35 years, so
maybe it's a little different now.
I'm the old salty dog in the profession right now.
I gotcha.
I'm the elder statesperson at this point. Everybody comes to me. I'm Yoda. There's a problem.
You can say elder statesman. I have no problem with. I know exactly who I am.
I'm the elder. I am Yoda in my profession.
Gotcha.
So, but we didn't have that back then. So
yeah. So I definitely didn't have it. And so I enroll in the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Now I do this really reluctantly. And I was a major pain in their ass, because I called them, it must have been 20 times before, handing over my $5,000 or whatever it was, because I wanted to know that I was actually going to learn something.
You're going to get something out of it.
I'm a physician. Like, are you sure that I'm really going to learn something? Yes. We have a number of physicians in our program. So I go.
Not you, Dr. Jenn. You never asked 1,000 questions, and you weren't a thorn in there's not
me.
Not you.
So I'm still super duper skeptical, and I'm listening to one of the very first lectures, and a man named Mark Hyman walks on the stage. Now, this is 2016 or 2017. He does not have the acclaim that he has now, although he did have plenty of acclaim. I just was not aware of it. So he walks on and he introduces himself as a functional medicine physician. And what does my skeptical, snooty booty self say? There's no such thing as a functional medicine physician. What is this quack talking about?
What is this quack?
I marginalize him the same way that we are marginalized every single day, right?
100. Listen, I'm a chiropractor doing functional medicine physician.
Right.
Oh
So
boy, I get it all day long.
You know
but that's
all
okay.
about being marginalized.
I don't care. I don't care. How's that sound?
And me neither. I mean, listen, when I
Kindred
stepped away,
that,
you think that my friends and colleagues who, like, I went from being the smartest person in the room to having lost her mind. Right.
That's right.
Right. In a day.
We need to get old Jenn to the psychiatrist because
Exactly.
there's something a little wrong. She needs
I either lost my mind or my skills, or it couldn't be because I'm enlightened. It couldn't be because I actually learned something after my training. In any event, so Mark Hyman walks on the stage and I think, what's this quack talking about? And then I remember that I'm sick and that I have to be there for a reason.
Right.
So I kind of check my ego at the door and I shut up and I tune in and I listen. And thank God I did. Because within minutes of this man speaking, my whole world makes sense.
Yeah.
And I know exactly why I got sick. I got sick so that I could be in that room on that day, listening to him speak, because what he's saying makes my whole world make sense. It helps me to see my real purpose. And not only do I have the opportunity to heal myself, which, if I'm being honest, that's all that journey was about. I mean, this wasn't about like, wow, I have to find a better way to help my breast cancer.
It was about you initially.
This was about me living.
100%.
And
all of us in this functional medicine community, we have that same, we all share that. We all share that.
Pain to purpose. Because without it, I would have had no reason to see the light. Right? Like I would have continued to operate. I would have continued to hone my skills. I mean, I truly believed when I was a surgeon that I was changing the world.
Of course.
And it wasn't until Dr. Hyman pointed out how very broken our system is that I realized that I was far more a part of the problem than I was a part of the solution.
That's right. You're just going along with the program at that point. Here we go. We're going to disrupt. You're just going
another cog in the wheel.
You're just going along. You have some rep coming in, and here's a new pharmaceutical, and here's this, and here's a new procedure, and you think that you're doing well. And for everybody listening, Dr. Jenn thinks she's doing well. It's not like she just, I'm just doing this, and I'm the top dog,
in the
country.
Did I think it, I knew that, right? Like I did not see anything else but that truth. Because that's what was taught to me from day one.
Right. That's what happens.
This is how you treat cancer. And I trusted that that was true.
You go from room to room. You have your pen. Well, back in the early days, you had your pen and you had paper. Now you have your EMR, right? And you're walking in and you're just, what can I do you for? And then we just go through it and, all right, we're going to schedule surgery on this day. You're going to do a little chemo. You're going to do a little radiation. Maybe you're going to take this 1 or 2 pills. And then, okay, let's see what happens now.
Yeah.
Type of
but
thing.
But the what's happens now is big. And we never talked about that.
Yeah.
I mean, we never talked about what happened to people as a result of what we were doing. And it's because we're so fractionated in the conventional medical world, in that all the focus is on the diagnosis, is on what we call the disease. So in terms of cancer, all the focus is on the tumor, but the tumor is not the problem. The tumor is the symptom of the problem.
Right.
And unless you do that digging, unless you figure out your why, what is to stop the tumor from coming back? Or, in the case of breast cancer, most women won't recur. They'll just manifest the next thing.
Right.
So, one of the things that we don't talk about is the fact that women die exponentially more frequently of heart disease than they do of breast cancer. Yet breast cancer gets all the attention. So after the age of 30, it's like 2 times more women will die of heart disease in their 30s than will die of breast cancer. Yet, do we talk about heart disease in women in their 30s? Like never.
The conversation is not discussed to find, and what we say in the functional medicine community, that root cause or what's going on. Yep. Because your genetics holds the gun, your lifestyle pulls that trigger, and it pulls it hard, and it keeps pulling it until you stop it.
Yeah.
Right. I know that. You know that I'm in the heart disease world, and I have equally as many males and females in my program right now. And we need to be discussing all of it.
Yeah.
We need to be discussing all of it. We need to sit there and say, we need to discuss breast cancer, heart disease, whatever that is, because whatever is being done isn't working so well now, is it, Dr. Jenn? Tell me.
No. So, a big part of the problem is, first of all, we're not talking about the root causes. We're not talking about the inflammation. We're not talking about the drivers of disease. But then we're also not acknowledging what the ramifications of our treatment are. Because we're taking these women, we are screening them at the wazoo with
decimating them.
Yeah. Which, I never understood using a test that causes cancer to screen for cancer. And we're doing it more and more often. So, the number of mammograms that women get over their lifetime is only increasing. We're not doing better with this. We're doing worse. And then we're taking these women and we're giving them a diagnosis, many of which, we find these incidental cancers that would have never become clinically relevant. And now we're giving these women a diagnosis and we're treating them. We're treating them with surgery, which is traumatic. We're treating them with chemo. We're treating them with radiation. We're treating them with aromatase inhibitors and tamoxifen. And all of these things are further and further and further decimating people's health. And then you're done treatment and we say you're cured after 5 years, which is a ridiculous amount of time to tell people that they're cured. Then they live with this fear hanging over their heads of recurrence the rest of their life. So that's weighing on them. That alone is traumatic. That alone is stressful enough to take your immune system out, not to mention what we did to you during the process. And then on top of it, these treatments that we have are directly damaging, right? So women who are treated for breast cancer have 2 to 3 times more likely of dying of heart disease than women who are not. Now, I know that that's two-sided, right? Because unless you deal with the inflammation that caused the breast cancer, you're just going to manifest it in another way. So that's heart disease.
Right.
So that's definitely part of it. But chemotherapy accelerates heart disease. Radiation accelerates heart disease. Any hormone blockade will accelerate heart disease because we need estrogen to keep our vessels healthy, to keep our heart healthy.
Right.
And so we're basically like trading in one disease for something that is far worse. And that's not even to speak of what we're doing to people's bones. I mean, as many women die every year of a complication of a fracture as do of breast cancer. Where the hell are the ribbons for that? Right? But talking about breast cancer gets attention. It's somehow sexy. And so that's
money. It's money. Let's be honest. It's money.
Yeah.
It's
like
money.
People feel good about buying a pink yogurt or a pink bottle of nail polish, and they think that they're contributing to something, right? Makes them feel good about themselves.
Right.
And meanwhile, we have more and more breast cancer. The world is more and more toxic, and you're just lining the pockets of the people that are part of the problem.
Right.
And the medical machine is also part of the problem. I mean, let's face it, the breast cancer treatment industry is a huge, huge moneymaker. Huge. I mean,
Listen,
we're talking about billions of dollars.
You and I have had these conversations in the past, and it's true where, heart disease is still number one, but yet we have the war on it, and it's worse today. Breast cancer increasing, we have the war on it, new techniques, but it's increasing. So for the listeners, you got to do something to prevent what's going on here.
Yeah.
Right? You have to do something to prevent, because you get the disease, you are, you're not the diagnosis. And as Dr. Jenn said before, and this is very important, the tumor is it's the end stage. It's the end stage. What brought that tumor about? You didn't just wake up in the morning one day, oh, I got a tumor, right? So,
yeah.
Jenn,
I mean, for most people, that's like a 10-year process.
Right.
And people get diagnosed, and all of a sudden it's like a race to the bottom, right? Like, oh, you have to have surgery within 2 weeks, and you have to have radiation within 7 weeks, and you have to have chemotherapy within 8 weeks. And they're like pressuring and pressuring and pressuring, and people are so scared.
They're scared. I have, my mother died last April, and she had a cough, had a chest x-ray. There was a little lesion. It was tumor. It was encapsulated. Got to take it out. Got to take it out. Got to take it out. We got to do this. We got to do this. Got to do this. The surgeon said that may have been there for, we don't know how long, right? 6 months later, she wasn't here anymore. Her body broke down after all of the treatment. It was just so caustic to her body, the chemo and the radiation. But we have new ones, and it's advanced, and you don't get the side effects. Really. Talk about current treatment. What are your thoughts?
It's so sad what treatment has become, because now it's just a game. It's just a game. And we are bringing new drugs onto the market that are the same or worse than older drugs, right? They do not have it. We're measuring these kind of surrogate endpoints, right? So let's say this drug shrinks the tumor, but it doesn't lend to cure. So now we're taking these more toxic, more expensive drugs, because every time a new drug comes on the market, it's there to replace something that's come off of patent.
Yep.
Right. So they have 7 years to make as much money as they can. And then they do one of two things. They'll bring a new drug on the market, and we'll use this new drug, not because it's better, because it's not. We'll use this new drug because it's new. And so
it's improved. It's new and improved. So,
but it's not improved. That's the thing. And those are the questions that no one is asking. There's a great book, I forget who wrote it, called Malignant. And it goes through the drug creation process and how we have moved away in the area of cancer drugs from talking about cure.
Right.
Now we're talking about surrogate endpoints so that these drugs can get approved. Because if we were talking about cure, they don't cure better than the old drugs. So they wouldn't get approved.
All they have to do is change. Yeah, all they have to do is change a compound or two or few.
And that's the other thing that they do.
That's the only thing that's done.
They take their same old drug and they make a minor modification. And now it's a new drug on the market, and they can charge way more money for it.
So for the listeners today, all right, you all know that I did R&D back in the day before I became a chiropractor, and I won't mention the name of the pharmaceutical company, major pharmaceutical company, huge.
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
I think I know which one it was.
And well, I probably told you a while ago, but let me tell you something. When they lost a patent pendant on their signature product, which we were doing the research out of, everybody and their mother-in-law, every pharmaceutical company in the world was able to now produce this, and there was just mass firings. I survived, and we went on to new stuff. And all you have to do is change a compound or two, and it's new and it's improved.
And it can be really, really minor modifications.
Doesn't have
it
to
does
be
not have to be
significant.
major. No,
Right.
It can be really, really minor. I mean, I think someone told me that one drug, they even changed the color of the coating and remarketed it as a new drug. I mean, that should be illegal. But what happens is that, the people get placed on the FDA approval committees that work for the drug companies. So it's like we're letting the fox be in charge of the hen house.
That's just crazy the way that that is done.
It's crazy the way that the approval process is done. And yet people trust that the FDA has their interest at heart, and they trust that the FDA is protecting them. And you need to look no further than the OxyContin story or the Vioxx story, or, there's story after story after story of, we knew that Vioxx caused heart attacks. We knew, we had all the data there, and yet we approved it.
But yet,
we let it come onto market.
But yet it was there, right? It was there. And you're sitting there and you're like, geez, this is just something that we shouldn't be doing as a society of healers to do this. I have a friend of mine in Colorado, and he and I became friends. He's a physical medicine and rehab when I was in my chiro days, and we were doing trauma work, and I met him at some seminars and stuff. Last year, he wrote a paper, and it still hasn't been published, on how research today, scientific medical research today, I read it, he sent it to me, my opinion on it. It just, how things are pushed through and how stuff is just so biased because whoever's giving up the cash to fund this study. And it's no scientific research anymore. There's no curiosity. This is the way that you and I were trained. There was no, what's the best? What's the best for the patient? It has nothing to do with that. All the innocence is gone. All the innocence is gone when it comes to this. And now you're trying out drugs that just don't, well, anyway, they're going to shut us down, but that's okay.
Yeah. And, listen, it is a work of fiction, but watch Dopesick. I mean, that, like, it's on Netflix, or I forget what it's on. Michael Keaton starred in it. But, I actually had PTSD when I watched that, because I was a surgical resident when OxyContin came on the market.
Yeah.
And those drug reps would come in and tell us, like, this is what you should be using for post-operative pain. And it is not addictive. I mean, they said these words, it is not addictive. And it is by far the best choice that you can use for post-operative pain. And, as a surgical resident, I probably did, I don't know, a couple thousand operations a year. I can't remember. I'm sickened. I can't remember how many OxyContin scripts I wrote. Can't remember. Can't even scratch the surface of remembering.
Listen, in the suburbs of Philly, going into Pennsylvania, going into Pennsy, and going into New Jersey, you had Oxy on the streets because they would sell that stuff because, of course, it was not addictive. Why would they want to sell that stuff on the streets, right? Yeah. So that stuff was being sold on the streets because they wanted to have, because it was so addictive. And then we have the whole opioid crisis that just kind of just burst through with that. That's a conversation for another time. I took care of that in my town. I could tell you that, and it was just crazy because in my town,
because there were no casual users of that. I mean, it was the most addictive of the options out there. And so, I, to this day, have no idea how many addicts I created by doing that. But, we were told that it was safe, and the FDA didn't put a black box warning on that for years.
And you're just going with what you know to be true, what you think, what you know to be true.
Well, I trusted the FDA, right?
Sure, you trust.
And if they said that this is non-addictive, I trusted that. And I think we all do that. We all do that. We assume that they're there to protect us, and they're just another branch of industry, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because the way that we have it set up,
Yeah.
you know, if someone who has a financial interest is on that committee to approve a drug, there is no way that they can act independently. They can't.
Right. You know, in my days in politics, if I was on the zoning board, and if a friend put an application before the board, I would have to recluse myself, because there's just no way I could be an independent type of a thing. And if I didn't, you know, all the political, mayoral, chairman, you know, all that stuff would have, you know, all that stuff would have been gone, you know. But here, this is what's going on. Let's talk prevention.
Yeah.
What's the silver lining for this functional medicine? Because I'm talking to my partner, Dr. Jeff Bissotti. Hi, Jeff. And he's a PM&R. He's a great guy. We've all known each other for a million years. And I used the term functional medicine. He was like, what is that, functional medicine? And he was, you know, you're smiling, you know, and you know, he's making fun of it. And I looked at him and I thought about it for a second, and I said, how many painkillers have you prescribed today? Painkillers. What the heck's a painkiller? What is that? I'm taking a painkiller. It's a descriptive terminology that we have here, functional medicine. But you're giving out muscle relaxers. Does it relax all the muscles? How about the smooth muscles in the heart? Does it do that? Am I going to have a heart attack? Right? How about those painkillers? Right? Oh, see, when you're dealing with me, when it comes to this type of stuff, you're dealing with a different animal. You're dealing with a different type of a person. And I said, what about the smooth muscle in the heart? Does it relax that? Is that good? Is that why you're having heart attacks with this stuff? We went for a beer that night and we played golf the next day, and we didn't discuss it to this day. And that was a long time ago. So anyway, he's still a good friend. So we had painkillers. Tell me, what's prevention? What does that look like for you? Tell us about your program and how you help individuals out with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I always say breast health is health, right? So the same things that are going to keep your breast healthy are going to keep your heart healthy, are going to keep your gut healthy, are going to keep your brain healthy, your bones healthy, your skin healthy, your muscles healthy. Like, we are all one system. We are not a bunch of different fragmented systems. We are one system operating in harmony. And so cancer is a normal response to an abnormal environment, right? Those cells they're not foreign cells. They are every bit a part of you as anything else. And they are just responding to an environmental shift. And so prevention is all about keeping that environment healthy, keeping homeostasis, keeping equilibrium. And what that looks like is eating in a way that promotes health. And there's no one diet that's right for everyone.
100%.
But and different people will have different tolerances, but there is no processed food diet that promotes health. It just doesn't exist.
Does not exist.
Right? And so, you know, no matter what your diet dogma is, just make sure that you're eating real food. You know,
oh my goodness. So I was on a podcast and I mentioned real food, and there were PhDs in nutrition there. Ooh. And I let them go. The water is deep and cold where I swim, you know. And I let them go, and they were making fun of me from real food. And I said, so this cake here is real. This chemical drink that's sugary, that's a cola, that's real. This hamburger that's been made at this fast food restaurant, it's real. To me, there's no such thing as junk food. It's either junk or it's food. It's junk or it's food. Real food from the earth, real food, organic, wild caught. That's what real is. And I brought them in, and they didn't know what to say when I was done eviscerating them. It was fun that day. And what do you mean, what is real food? You got to eat real food.
Yeah. I mean, I used to say, if it grew in the ground fell from a tree, walked, swam, or flew, you can eat it.
Right.
Now I'm a little more picky. I have some more rules in that, like, if it grew in the ground, but it grew in the ground and it was genetically modified before that, you shouldn't eat it. And, you know, if it was born in nature and not engineered, you can eat it. So, you know, I do have more rules now, but I even think that if you stuck to that, grew in the ground, fell from a tree, walked, swam, or flew, if you stuck to that, and even if you weren't picky, you'd still be in way better shape than the people that have allowed the processed food to dominate their lives.
That's right.
And, you know, let's face it, it's not an accident that we have a worldwide health crisis, right? As the rest of the world begins to act like Americans, eat like Americans, sit their asses down all day like Americans, like as the rest of the world imitates us, they look like us. Okay. They're fat, they're sick. You know, I mean, this is the consequence of the standard American diet, the standard American lifestyle.
Listen, and when Jenn mentions the F word, because you can't say that today, listen, that's caused by your lifestyle. And that needs to change, because Mark was talking, when I heard him talk the last time, he was talking about an article, I think it was in JAMA or NEJM, and he was talking about how those that were eating an inflammatory diet, so you're eating processed foods, cakes, candy, sugars, fast foods, because in the 70s it all changed with the Hungry Man dinner and all of that stuff like that, right? Because I remember that happening. Convenience
is killing us.
Right. And so you have increased HbA1c, you had increased waist to hip ratio, you had increased obesity, you had increased inflammation, you had increased poor health. Mayo Clinic did a study in Spain recently, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, where they were saying that those in Spain are getting away from the Mediterranean diet and they're eating ultra processed foods, and they're seeing teenagers becoming sedentary over a period of time. And they're looking at those that are increasing their weight. It's not fat, it's just the adipose tissue, just poor health that this comes along with. Because when we're dealing with patients and we're doing anti-inflammatory work, I'm increasing your percent, you know, I'm increasing your lean muscle mass.
Yeah.
I'm decreasing your percent body fat. You're becoming a better fat burning machine. Now, whether you want to call whatever you want to say, oh my goodness, you can't say that today, but that's what it does. And you don't want that excess stuff from that lifestyle that you're doing, you know, because
unfortunately we've all been sold a bill of goods that you can be both fat and healthy. And I know it's not politically correct to say that, and I'm sorry, but it's just, you cannot.
The pressure you're putting on your heart, the pressure you're putting on the lungs, the pressure that you're putting on your musculoskeletal system, and so forth and so on. Come on, man. What are we doing?
And your liver.
So many things.
Yeah.
Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is exponential right now.
Now, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease was virtually unheard of 50 years ago. Now it is the #1 cause of liver failure.
And it's a lifestyle disease, sedentary, cardiovascular issues, diabetes. It's all wrapped up. It's all right there.
And you can put breast cancer on that list.
Right? You put your NASH score in there.
On that list. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And so, you know, breast health is health. The same things that you're going to do to drive breast health are going to drive heart health, are going to drive lung health, brain health, bone health, skin health, gut health. You know, it's all the same. We're all one system. So we're going to eat real food, right? We're going to make sure that we are moving. We are not meant to be sedentary. Sitting is the new smoking.
That's right. There was that study that was done. It's the worst thing for you.
Yeah. And it's because we are modern beings living on a very old gene code. So we only know what we know. Our genes have not changed in millions of years.
Right.
So we are nomadic people. We had to go and find things. We had to find shelter. We had to find food. We had to move. right?
That's
And
right.
if the saber-toothed tiger knew where you lived, guess what you got visited by every day? So you had to move.
You had to move. And just because you're in your 60s doesn't mean life is over. Anyway, Dr. Jenn, I got some good news and I got some bad news. What do you want? What do you want first?
It doesn't matter to me. It's all good news.
All right. So we got like 3 minutes left. We're at it for 50 minutes, and I feel incomplete because I knew this was going to happen between you and I. I feel incomplete with this conversation, and we're gonna have you back on next week because we got to finish this.
We're gonna have to do it again.
We're gonna have to do this again, Dr. Jenn, because this is gonna get released next week, and then we're gonna have to continue on with prevention and screenings and I don't know, whatever else we can think of in this next podcast.
You got it. You got it.
I think before we get off today, we're you and I offline here, we're gonna put another one in here because this is just way too important information not to discuss any further. But everybody's interest is piqued in this, including mine. So where can we find you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm on social media at Dr. Jenn Simmons, and my Jen has 2 N's. You can find me on my YouTube page at Dr. Jennifer Simmons. And I have a podcast called Keeping Abreast with Dr. Jenn. A new one is released every Monday. So hopefully you'll listen, subscribe, tell me you liked it, give me some comments. And my website is called Real Health MD.
All of that stuff is going to be in the show notes so that we have it for you. So Dr. Jenn, we're going to talk next week. And for everybody listening, we're going to continue on with this conversation because everybody's like, what just happened? What are we doing? Well, we got to keep it at 50 minutes. And the people that do this, they just get mad at me and stuff. But I knew this was going to happen with Dr. Jenn and I. So as soon as we start talking, it just rocks from there. So Dr. Jenn, hang on when I stop the podcast, and we'll set up right now. I'll email Stephanie, and we'll go from there. So I want to thank you for coming on, sharing your story, being passionate, being disruptive. I love it when you and I are disruptive doing this stuff. This is great. And we're going to have you back on next week. I'm going to thank everybody for listening in. Part 1, part 2 coming up next week. So listen in. Dr. Jenn, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Great to be here.